What's up guys, I'm Mr. Audio, and if you're new here, on this channel we talk about music production, sound design, mixing, mastering, and pretty much anything to get your tracks ready for release. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss a video. Let's get into it. Alright, in this video I'm going to go over my vocal chain, which I feel like is the perfect vocal chain. To be honest with you, a lot of other professional mix engineers use a similar or the same vocal chain. So let's just go over it step by step, and we're also going to look at how each step changes the waveform of the audio, because I feel that having a visual representation of what's happening really helps you understand what's going on through each step of the process. Alright, let's get stuck in. So first of all, let's listen to a before and after. Alright, so here's the before.
I guess it's time to let it go. Won't make it through the night, I know. I guess it's time to let it go.
And now here's after process. Now keep in mind, there's no reverb on any of this.
I guess it's time to let it go. Won't make it through the night, I know. I guess it's time to let it go.
Alright, so let's unpack what's happening here, because from this
I guess it's time to let
to
it
this
go. Won't make it
is
through.
a big difference. Alright, so when I hear the dry vocal, immediately I know it needs more top end. And then while I'm raising the top end, I'm obviously going to have to de-ess it. Alright, so I've shut all the EQ points off, so let's listen to this dry, and then as I come to think of what this needs, I'll add those EQ points in. Okay.
I guess it's time to let
I need more
it
top
go.
end.
Won't make it
This
through
is a high
the
shelf.
night, I know.
It's pretty much where I'd put
I guess
it.
it's time to let it go. I guess it's time to let it go. Won't make it through the night, I know.
Alright, that takes care of the top end. But I'm still getting some wispiness, and some S's are coming up quite severely. So let's try to tame that. That's taking the edge off.
I guess it's time to let it go. Won't make it through the night.
There's some T's and S's there. Oh, that helps a lot. Alright, now let's listen to this one. More S's. Alright, that helps a lot. So now we've got our top end kind of dialed in. This bell is doing absolutely nothing, so we're just going to exit it out because we don't even need it. Now this looks like it's removing some woolliness. Let's just solo out that band and see what it's doing to begin with. Yeah, some woolliness. Just taming a couple of the harmonics here. Now, I always like to roll off the low end and kind of have it set to the frequency with Nectar. Nectar does a great job of just rolling off what's needed.
I guess it's time to let it go. Won't make it through.
And see how it follows the fundamental there?
I guess it's time to let it go.
It's a nice feature. We've taken care of some of the S's, alright? I'm going to do more dramatic de-essing later on. Let's compress it and see how much the S's come up next. Okay, so first let's freeze this and drag the waveform down so we can see what the EQ has done to this waveform, because I think it's pretty interesting. And see, the second half of the performance was pretty top end heavy. Like, I sang it in a much higher pitch. So what I imagine when I raise the top end, it's going to raise the waveform of that part. So this back end here is probably going to get a little bigger in the waveform section. Let's just check it out. Ah, see? Much more consistent. All right. So as you can see, we've already started evening out this waveform here. And it's starting to look a little bit more full on the back end here than it did up here. Now we can check out what this compressor is doing. I'll leave links in the description for these plugins I use. All right, basically an LA2A is an optical compressor. What it does is it uses light to detect the amplitude of the incoming signal and compresses at a static rate. So you really have no control over the attack and release and any of the functions of it, just how much compression. And people really like the way this compressor reacts to vocals, and they usually like to use it first. So I decided to see what all the fuss was about, and I've grown to like it in the past 2 tracks that I've used this combination on, and we'll get to the second half of the combination in a second. So let's just listen to what it's doing on and off, all right? I'm smacking it pretty hard, all right? Like I said in my last video, don't be afraid of compression. Okay, so now the difference between this.
I guess it's time to let it go. Won't make it through the night, I know.
As you can see, it thickened it up. It's a bit warmer. The low end is thicker. It's just thicker, all around thicker. All right, so add some thickness to it.
I guess it's time to let it go. Won't make it through.
The waveform that this creates is very interesting because, as you know, all compressors have an attack and release setting, all right? Now, this attack is stationary, and so is the release. So what we're going to get here is we're going to see how much the attack actually is. Let's check it out. All right. Wow. It looks way different. As you can see, the difference between the amplitude of this and this are completely different. As you can see, there's some attack happening right here. Because remember, I'm adding makeup gain. So all of that makeup gain is being added to this when the compressor's not reacting to it, because this is such a short, transient sound. And as you can see, the breath starts coming up the more we compress. This is a common issue. I'll show you how to take care of it at the end. So as you can see, it's got kind of a slow attack and adds kind of a bit of a transient aggressiveness to the vocal performance. I kind of like this. I do need to tone it down sometimes, but we can get to that part later on. We just let it run through the whole vocal chain first. Then we'll clean up the waveform at the end of it. All right, so now that we've taken a look at what the waveform of the LA2A compressed performance looks like, let's run it through an 1176 model. All right, now this is also by Analog Obsession. I'm not sure which 1176 it's modeling, but I do know that I like the sound. So I'll leave links in the description again. Now, an 1176 is a FET compressor, and it does a lot to the sound. Now, there's another channel out there that does a deep dive on the history of the 1176 compressor. I'll link that video in the description. I have a relatively medium attack and kind of a slow release. Now, for sustained instruments, the faster your attack is, the slower your release is going to want to be. Otherwise, you'll get this pumping feeling, and I'll show you what it looks like on the waveform. Let's just do that now. So let's go a really fast attack and a really fast release. And then we're just going to freeze this and see what that does. Now, I've got the ratio set to 4:1 because that's really what I like to compress vocals at. Sometimes I go more drastic, but oftentimes 4:1 is just enough for me. Okay, so now this is going to be interesting here. Let's just look at what this waveform looks like. Okay, so as you can see, it clamps down right here. It's got like a little bow, and then it releases, and then this is just the rest of the waveform. Clamps down right there. Just little tiny little dips. It's not really doing much. See, it's clamping down. See, right there, and it's clamping down right here. And then it releases. That compressor's not doing anything at all to compress the signal. So let's actually compress the signal the way it should be compressed and see what the waveform looks like. Alright, let's bring this about there. Relatively slow release. Alright, now let's freeze this. Okay, and now you can see a more consistent waveform, and it looks like the compressor's actually clamping down and holding for a while. Smooths out all the waveforms. Look at that. Look at that. Okay, so now we still have some problems with the attack. Alright, this attack still didn't really go away because We got a relatively slow attack on the 1176. And like I said, we have ways of fixing this. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so now we've compressed it. Let's hear what it sounds like when it's compressed.
I guess it's time to let it go. Won't make it through the night, I know. I guess it's time to let it go.
It's starting to sound like a really, really nice vocal. Let's just take a before and after where we were and where we are now, all right? So here's what we started with.
I guess it's time to let it go.
Here's where we are now.
Won't make it through the night, I know. I guess it's time.
We're almost there. We're not quite. So now that we've got some compression dialed in, I want to bring some top end in. And as you know, with top end, I'm going to want to de-ess. So let's see what we can take care of in this instance of Nectar. As you know, making contrasting moves can really drastically change the sound. So if you cut some lows, it'll be perceived as a more top end heavy mix. So I'm going to cut the fundamental just a little bit, all right? I'm going to boost some high end, and that's probably going to drastically change the vocal. It's going to thin it out quite a bit, but then we're also going to de-ess it and compress the high end a bit as well. We'll see what's going on. Let's turn off the de-esser first. Let's turn off the high end first, and let's just see what it sounds like without the low cut as well. So
Make it through the night, I know.
And this moves with the frequency, so it's just going to cut the fundamental a little bit, so it's going to follow the fundamental. So you can't really solo this out and get a good result. But what you can do is you can just listen to hear what it does.
Make it through the night, I know. I guess it's time to let it go.
Just thins it out a tiny, tiny bit. It's almost unnoticeable. Now we're going to add this in.
Make it through the night, I know. I guess it's time to let it go. Make it through the night, I know.
Okay, as you can see, now we need to de-ess again. So let's turn the de-esser on and see what we're taking away. And as you can see, we're taking away way too much there. All right, now let's actually trim this up a bit. That's a better de-essing.
Make it through the night, I know. I guess it's time.
Okay, now this is a trick that I like to do when I'm having trouble with de-essing. So I activate a dynamic EQ on a high shelf.
Make it through the night, I
just
know.
take the edge off.
I guess it's time to let it go. I guess it's time to let it go. Won't make it through the night, I know. I guess it's time to let it go. I guess it's time to let it go. Won't make it through the night, I know.
Perfect, that sounds great. And now let's check out what all this has done to the waveform, all right? Then we're on to the last stage, saturation. I like to saturate the vocal at the end of it to really bring out the character, all right? We're going to do that with Plugin Alliance's Black Box. But first, let's check out the waveform of what we just did. Okay, so now I said we're going to clean up that attack problem that we had before. As you can see at the beginning, we have a really hot signal coming in. I'm just going to kind of fade into that, all right? And just see how that sounds.
I guess it's time.
Shave off a bit more.
I guess it's time.
There, we softened that up a bit, and we're going to use that same method on these other parts too that are more transient oriented.
It's time. Yes, it's time to let it go. Won't make it. Yes, it's time to let it go. Won't make it through the night, I know. I guess it's time.
Okay, so this eye here needs that treatment done to it as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this in, kind of do that to it, and see where that gets us.
I guess it's time to let it.
That sounds nice. Okay, so now we got to take care of this breath here. Like I said, it's a common problem. So you just turn that breath down with the clip gain.
Oh, I guess it's time to let it go.
Alright, it looks like we've got a nice little waveform going on here now. Let's add the saturation in and see what that's doing here. Alright, let's turn this off.
Oh, I guess it's time to let it go. I guess it's time
Now
to
on.
let it go. Won't make it through the night, I know. I guess it's time to let it go. I guess it's
On.
time to let it go. Won't make it through the night, I know. I guess it's time to let it go.
As you can see, it just adds that little bite. Let's accentuate the distortion so you can actually hear what it's doing, and then I'll back it off again.
Oh, I guess it's time to let it go. Oh, I guess it's time to let it go. I guess it's time to let it go. Won't make it through the night, I know. I guess it's time to let it go.
As you can see, it just adds that bite, a little grit, if you will. Alright, now let's see what saturation does to the waveform. Alright, and then we're going to check out a before and after to see how powerful this vocal chain actually is. And then we'll add some reverb in there for fun. Alright, so let's freeze this track. As you can see, saturation also shortens the dynamic range of the performance as well, similar to what a compressor does, but in a different way. Alright, so as you can see, we've got a nice evened out waveform. Nothing looks like it's popping out of place. Everything looks smoothed out. Alright, now let's listen to a before and after. Alright, so let's minimize all of these guys here. Here's a before.
I guess it's time to let it go. Won't make it through the night, I know.
And here's an after.
I guess it's time to let it go. Won't make it through the night, I know. I guess it's time to.
Alright, now let's add some reverb and hear it with the rest of the track.
I guess it's time to let it go. Won't make it through the night, I know. I guess it's time to let it go.
And there you have it. That's my vocal chain. That's how I like to process my vocals most of the time. And how I figured out those EQ points is by just listening, critical listening, and just asking myself, what does this performance need? What am I going to want to hear if I'm going to hear it in headphones? Alright, that's it for this video, guys. If you stuck around to the end and you're an Ableton user, there's some free stuff with links in the description. I also have some paid products on my website. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Mr. Audio, out.